So now we're going to create the user frame. And so just go to Menu, Setup, Frames, and it defaults to the tool frame window. So to get the user frame, click on Other and then User Frame. So we don't have any user frames defined yet, so I'm just going to hit Enter, which will select user frame 1. And we're going to use the 3-point method. So if you click on Method, click 3-point, it brings this up. So now we're at a window where we need to teach 3 points: the origin of the user frame, the X direction, and the Y direction. So in order to do this effectively, we need to be able to move the robot around the work cell, move the view. And so if you go to the View menu and click Mouse Commands, it comes up with a reference for some mouse commands that you can use to change the view. So the 4 commands here are the 3 of these are the ones that you're going to be using the most. So if you right drag, it brings the view around like this, rotates the view. If you hold Control while you right drag, it pans the view across like this. And then to zoom, if your mouse has a roller, you can use the roller. It'll zoom in and out using a roller. Or if it doesn't have a roller, you can use press both the right and left button at the same time, and you can go in and out. All right, now let me just get this window out of the way so we don't really need it. To do the user frame, we want to get the tool center point right there. I'm going to use this corner of the fixture as my origin. This will be the X direction, and this will be the Y. So the tricky thing with a 3D view is that you can't see all the dimensions at the same time. So what we're going to do is there's some orthogonal views up here so that we can look at it from only one angle. So the first thing I'm going to do is rotate the robot roughly so it's like this, and then go up here to the top view, and that will line it up so we're looking at the robot from the top down. Now we're going to first adjust the tool center point so that it's sitting right over that corner. Now you can see the tool center point through the pointer. One thing we can do to make this a little bit better is to double click the pointer tool and when you double click it, it should come up like this, and under General you can set some level of transparency. So I'm going to go to about 0.26. Now we can really see through the pointer. Maybe even to get a better view of that tool center point, I'm going to just jog joint 5 a little bit further down, bring the speed down here, maybe a little less. Okay, that's good. So you want to be able to see the tool center point through the body of the robot. Okay, now I need to make sure I'm in world coordinate jogging so that when I move this, it moves in straight lines. So I hit the coordinate button, changed to world, and I just got to position that tool center point right over that corner. So I'm going to go, this is the -Y direction, so I'm going to just come in I have to bring the speed down first. I'm going to come down in the -Y direction. And that's actually pretty close, but I'm going to finesse it a little bit more. So the speed right now is at 3%, which is too fast. I'm going to go right down to the fine speed, come down a little more in -Y. That's actually pretty good. And a little further in -X. I can even go down to very fine, zoom in a little further, and get as close as possible. So with the fine and very fine, it only moves one little step each time you click the mouse. All right, so that's as close as I'm going to get. Okay, so we're going to zoom back out, and now we want to look at it from the side. So I'm just going to roughly rotate it and then come over here, and we're going to use the right side view, orthogonal view, and now I just have to bring this tool center point down to where it meets the corner. So that's the negative z direction, and remember I'm at very fine speed, so I got to bring the speed back up. Maybe something like 5% might be good. Bring it down like this. When we get close, we'll slow it down, stop it, and then come down to maybe 1%. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to not quite right inside the corner, because what we're going to do later on, we're going to trace some shapes, and a lot of the shapes will be based on this user frame. So let's go down to very fine. Just take a bunch of clicks and we'll bring it right in. I want to just get it just a little bit above. If I go below this, the shapes that we trace are going to be invisible. All right, that looks good. So I'll zoom back out, go back to the regular view. Okay, that is my origin point. So to teach that, I just go Shift, Record, and now it's recorded. Okay, now I'm going to go back to the top view. Now this fixture is all on the same Z level. So now that I've got Z in the right place, I don't have to change that at all. So I just need to move it to the corner to do the X direction, and then this corner to do the Y direction. So I want to go back to that top view. And I'm going to jog this, bring the speed back up to maybe 5% should be good. I'm going to jog it out to this corner. So this would be the positive X direction. And then the positive Y direction. And I'll zoom in and bring the speed way down. Come back in the Y direction a little bit. Overshot it a little bit. Come way down all the way to very fine, and I'll just click it in. It's probably a little too slow. Let's go back to fine. Okay, zoom in a little bit more. Okay, that is right on the corner. All right, that is now my X direction point. So I want to do Shift, Record. And now I'm just going to jog out to this corner, and that'll be my Y direction point. So bring the speed back up. Go in the Y direction. And back in the negative X direction. We'll zoom in to get that closer. Let's try 1%. Oops. And go down to fine, and then to very fine. And that is as close as we can get. Okay, back out. And that will be our Y direction point. So cursor down to there, hit Shift, Record. And now we have a user frame. Okay, so the coordinates you see here are actually the distance relative to from the world origin to this origin. X at 412, Y at -36, and Z at -229. And notice it's only rotated around the z-axis. There's no rotation around x or y. So you got a 20-degree rotation around the z-axis. So now we want to use this user frame and test it, make sure it works. And so in order to do that, the first thing we have to do is look at the jog menu and make sure that the user frame 1 that we just created is the active user frame. So if we go to Shift Coord, you see how it says user frame 0? So we have to change that to a user frame 1. So we just type the 1, number 1, and it disappears, but if you want to make sure it actually took, just do Shift Coord again, and you can see now it says user frame 1. We also have tool frame 1, which is the tool frame that we've just defined here. So we want to make sure the tool frame and the user frame correspond to the ones that we actually have here. All right, now with user frame 1 as the active user frame, now if we go back to the coordinate menu, right now where we were in world, and we cycle until it says user. And the real test for the user frame is to see when you jog, to see if it follows the contours of your new user frame. So actually Roboguide even gives you a little coordinate picture that shows you the direction of all the axes. All right, so now we've got the speed at very fine, so we obviously want to bring that up to some kind of a speed that makes sense. So let's maybe go to 10%. So now if we do the, say the -y direction, you notice that it follows right along the edge of that square. Okay, so that's the user frame, and you can really see the difference between that. Maybe if I do this, okay, if we're in the user frame coordinate system, it's going to jog according to the X and Y angles that we set. If I go back, if I go to the coordinate button and go back to the world frame and I do X, it follows the standard coordinate system of world, which doesn't change. Okay, so to jog in user frame, you've got to select that coordinate. Whoops, I just went past it. World, tool, user. All right. Okay, and the last part of the lab on Lab 8 is to create a jog frame. It's the exact same process as creating a user frame. The only thing is I want you to set it up differently with an origin at one of the other corners. You can use the same fixture, but make sure you do it differently than the user frame. All right, so there's the tool and user frame, and that concludes the demo for Lab 8.